We're regulated by 25 different agencies, Galaxy, and I'm sure, FTX and Binance and the others have just as many. And so almost all crypto moves through exchanges. Those exchanges have KYC AML processes, just like TradeFi exchanges. And so, plus Bitcoin is a public blockchain. Way back we hired Mike Morell, who had run the CIA, Galaxy, and a few other companies, to do a study on Bitcoin. And he did like a 10 weeks exhaustive study with the security agencies, with the three-letter agencies, with crypto companies. And he came up with a thesis that if you were going to design a trap to catch criminals, it would look a lot like the Bitcoin blockchain. And so it's just, Elizabeth Warren is just wrong when she thinks you can use Bitcoin for Russia to evade sanctions. Yeah, so I think this is the biggest national security concern that every country should have. And as every citizen, you've got to understand that one CBDC and a stablecoin ain't the same thing, right? It all comes down to who controls them. And so if you look at the Chinese version, where it's a blockchain of one, right? It's complete, total transparency into every transaction you do. So you're giving up complete privacy, right? The version that we're pushing for, the blockchain community here in the US, what Brian Brooks pushed when he was the head of the OCC, was private companies running on a public blockchain, but those assets backed by assets held at Fed banks. Right? So it's where your privacy goes. I was on a call literally with the central bank governor of Brazil at one point, and I was pointing out that their president didn't really like gay people. I just Googled Bolsonaro gay, and there's about 18 pages of pretty uncomfortable stuff. And so if you're gay in Brazil, you don't want your country knowing every last purchase you made. So where do we care about privacy? And this sounds nuanced, but it is the single most important part of understanding how important this fight of CBDCs is. Like the other bald Mike, the NASDAQ has further to go to the downside this year. I think literally the Fed hasn't even started hiking rates. They haven't started pulling liquidity from the system. And so I've the whole year thought we'd be a 30,000, 50,000 range in Bitcoin. Risk to the upside, not the downside. But I think, 5 years out, if Bitcoin's not at 500,000, I'm wrong on the adoption cycle, right? We see an adoption cycle that accelerates. Bitcoin grew so much faster last year, crypto grew, than the internet did its best years in the 90s. And so I see this going viral everywhere. If it's in the Mideast or in pension funds in the United States, all getting ready to. Anybody can participate in the Bitcoin network. I don't need to have a certain level of wealth. I don't need to be in a private equity or a venture fund. I can go on and I can participate. I can build on it. I can invest in it.
And DeFi is part of the big promise as well, right?
Same thing with DeFi, and quite frankly, same thing with NFT communities, right? What is the surprise to me this year is that NFTs have become the killer app of the blockchain. It's the first place we said, hey, we're using this outside of an experiment, outside of a sandbox. We're using it in real life. Artists are making money. Musicians are making money. Big brands are making money. And so I actually think it's the most exciting thing that's going on. The greatest problem with bureaucracy is once something gets put in place, it's hard to get rid of it. And so, New York DFS, it's a state thing. There's a bunch of people lobbying. Everyone tells me it's going to happen. We'll see. 40%, I think, of all money that went into venture in this space went into New York City last year, right? Big institutions and small ones. New York is part of the heartbeat of crypto. Certainly Silicon Valley is. Miami is becoming part of that. It's more of a tax thing and a very crafty mayor. And so I think Eric is saying the right things. What's most important to know is your children are going to spend more and more time in the metaverse than you do. They already do, right? They're going to grow up on their phone. Their phone is the most important thing they own by the time they're 15 or 20 years old, or when you're 30 or 40 years old, right? Think about what happens when you lose your iPhone. And this is going to be the money of the metaverse.
Well, why is it important then for New York to be a leader here? I mean, tons of your peers and rivals have moved to the Bahamas, have moved to Puerto Rico, let alone inside the United States.
From New York, it's important. Listen, we employ, I think, 315 people. Our average salary last year, our median salary was over $240,000. Like, those are good, high-paying jobs that New Yorkers have. Like, I don't want to be forced to move all those to Miami or to the Bahamas.